My grandfather, Arthur, was the kind of man who didn't believe in fences. He believed in boundaries, sure. He believed in property lines. But he didn't believe in the kind of fences that kept neighbors away. He bought his farmhouse back in the late 70s. Back then, this whole area was just dirt roads, tall grass, and silence. He raised my dad there. He raised me there. Over the decades, the city crept closer. The dirt roads turned into asphalt. The tall grass was paved over. Slowly, the silence was replaced by the sound of construction trucks. A massive subdivision went up around us. It was called Willow Creek Estates. Suddenly, my grandfather's 10-acre farm was an island in a sea of beige, identical two-story houses. With the subdivision came the Homeowners Association. And with the HOA came Linda. Linda was the president of the Willow Creek HOA. She was the type of woman who measured grass height with a ruler. She walked around the neighborhood with a clipboard, looking for anything that didn't fit her perfect vision. And the thing she hated most in this world was my grandfather's farm. To her, our property was a stain. It was old. The barn paint was peeling slightly. The truck in the driveway was a 1995 Ford, not a brand new BMW. We had chickens. We had a vegetable garden that wasn't ornamental. For the last 3 years of my grandfather's life, Linda made it her mission to force him out. She sent letters. Hundreds of them. She claimed our trees were dropping leaves on HOA property. She claimed the chickens were a noise violation. She even tried to fine him for the color of his mailbox. Grandpa would just laugh. He'd toss the letters in the wood stove and say, "Let her type. Paper burns good." But then, Grandpa got sick. It happened fast. The fight went out of him. And as he got weaker, Linda got bolder. She started showing up at the door. She would stand on the porch, tapping her foot, telling my mother that the state of the property was affecting neighborhood values. She mentioned that the HOA had the power to place liens on properties that didn't comply with the bylaws. My mom was too busy caring for a dying man to argue. She would just nod and close the door. I think Linda took that silence for surrender. When Grandpa passed away on a Tuesday morning, the house felt empty. The silence he loved so much suddenly felt heavy. We were all in a fog. You know how it is when you lose the pillar of your family. You move on autopilot. We planned the funeral for Saturday. We wanted it to be small. Just family and close friends, right there on the property, under the big oak tree he loved. Saturday morning was grey and overcast. It had rained the night before, so the air smelled like wet earth and pine needles. The cars started arriving. Everyone was dressed in black. It was somber. It was respectful. We were standing by the gravesite. The priest was reading the final prayers. My mother was holding my hand, shaking. I was trying to stay strong for her. That's when I heard it. Thud, thud, thud. It was a metallic sound. Heavy and rhythmic. It cut right through the priest's voice. I looked up. About 50 yards away, near the main road, a white SUV was parked on the grass. Not on the road. On our grass. And there was Linda. She was wearing a bright floral blazer, completely out of place against the morning crowd. She was holding a mallet. Beside her was a large, wooden post. I couldn't process it at first. I watched as she lined up the post and swung the mallet again. Thud. She was driving a for sale sign into my grandfather's lawn. I felt a heat rise up the back of my neck. It wasn't just anger. It was something primal. This was a funeral. My grandfather wasn't even in the ground yet. I let go of my mom's hand. I whispered, "I'll be right back." I walked over to her. My boots sank into the soft mud. Linda didn't even look up until I was 5 feet away. She was sweating slightly from the exertion. She adjusted the sign, making sure it was straight. It had the logo of a local real estate agency, and across the top, in big red letters, it said, "Bank Foreclosure HOA Auction." "Linda," I said. My voice was dangerously quiet. She jumped a little, then smoothed her blazer. She looked me up and down with that same arrogant sneer she used on everyone. "Oh, hello," she said, as casually as if we were meeting at the grocery store. I didn't want to interrupt the little ceremony. But time is money. What are you doing? I asked. I pointed to the sign. This is a funeral. Get this off the property. Linda laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. This isn't your property anymore, sweetie. The HOA board voted last night. Due to the unpaid fines, thousands of dollars in unpaid fines, and the refusal to bring the home up to code, we've exercised our right to seize the asset. It's in the bylaws. She patted the sign. This is going on the market Monday morning. I already have a developer interested. They're going to bulldoze this old shack and put up 4 nice townhomes. It's for the best. Really? She looked past me, toward the grave. He was a stubborn old man. But he's gone now. It's time to clean up the neighborhood. My hands curled into fists. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the sign out of the ground and throw it into the woods. I wanted to call the police. But then, something clicked in my brain. I looked at Linda. I looked at the sign. And I remembered something my grandfather had told me years ago, back when the subdivision was first being built. He had shown me a map. A very old, very specific map. I took a deep breath. I unclenched my fists. You voted on this? I asked. Unanimously, she beamed. I'm the president, after all. Okay, I said. Linda blinked. She looked confused. She expected a fight. She expected tears. Okay, she repeated. If that's what the bylaws say, I said, forcing my face to remain completely neutral. Then I guess there's nothing I can do today. I have a funeral to finish. I turned my back on her. I walked back to the grave. I heard her hammer the sign one last time to make sure it was sturdy. I didn't look back. But as I stood there, listening to the priest say ashes to ashes, I made a vow. Linda thought she had one. She thought she had taken our legacy. She had no idea that she had just hammered a nail into her own coffin. The hardest thing I have ever done in my life was leaving that sign up for the rest of the weekend. Every time I looked out the window, I saw it. That bright red text screaming foreclosure. It was an insult. It was a slap in the face to my mother, who was already grieving. Neighbors from the subdivision drove by slowly, slowing down to gawk. I could see them pointing. I knew what they were thinking. They thought we were broke. They thought we were losers who lost the family farm because we couldn't pay our bills. My mom wanted to tear it down. She was crying at the kitchen table on Sunday morning. How can they do this? She sobbed. How can they just take it? I poured her a cup of coffee and sat down opposite her. Mom, I said gently. Do you trust me? She looked up, her eyes red and puffy. Of course. Then leave the sign, I said. Don't touch it. Don't call Linda. Don't answer the door if she comes back. But why? Because, I said, a cold calm settling over me. If we tear it down, it's just vandalism. If we fight them now, it's just an argument. I want them to commit. I want them to go through with it. I went into Grandpa's study. It smelled like old paper and pipe tobacco. I opened the heavy steel filing cabinet in the corner. Grandpa was old school. He didn't trust computers. He kept everything in physical files, organized by year. I wasn't looking for bills. I wasn't looking for the HOA letters. I was looking for the original deed. It took me 3 hours to find it. It was in a thick, yellowed envelope at the very back of the bottom drawer. The paper was fragile. It was dated 1974. Attached to it was a surveyor's map from the county, stamped with official seals that had long since faded. I read the document 3 times. Then I read it again. Then I smiled. I pulled out my phone and called my best friend, Mark. Mark isn't a lawyer, but he works in the county clerk's office. He understands zoning maps better than anyone I know. Mark, I said, I need you to pull the master plat for Willow Creek Estates. The original filing from when the developer bought the land around us. Sure, Mark said. What am I looking for? I want to know where the HOA jurisdiction lines are drawn, I said. And I want you to cross-reference it with Grandpa's deed. Monday morning rolled around. Linda didn't waste a second. At 9 a.m. sharp, a real estate photographer showed up. He was walking around our yard, taking pictures of the eyesore house. I watched him from the window. I didn't go outside. I didn't yell. I let him take his photos. By Tuesday, the listing was online. It was featured on the main real estate sites. Developer special, the listing screamed. Prime land in Willow Creek Estates. Subject to HOA foreclosure. They were asking for $450,000. It was a steal for the land value alone. On Wednesday, I received a certified letter from the HOA. It was signed by Linda. It stated that we had 30 days to vacate the premises before the new owners took possession. It listed legal fees, processing fees, and outstanding fines totaling over $15,000. I didn't reply. Instead, I went to the bank. I didn't withdraw money. I met with a notary. I had copies of Grandpa's deed, the county survey, and the original incorporation documents of Willow Creek Estate certified. Then, I sat back and waited. The open house was scheduled for the following Saturday. 1 week after the funeral. Linda was there early. She brought balloons. She brought cookies. She set up a little table at the end of our driveway. She was practically glowing. She was telling prospective buyers about her vision for the neighborhood. "Once this old thing is gone," I heard her say, gesturing to our porch, "property values for all of us will go up 10%. It's a win-win." I sat on the porch swing, drinking iced tea. A couple of people asked me if I was the tenant. "Something like that," I said. Linda glared at me. She marched over, her heels clicking on the paved walkway. "You need to leave," she hissed. "You are scaring away the buyers." "I live here, Linda," I said. "Not for long," she smirked. "We already have 3 offers. Cash offers. The board is meeting tonight to accept the highest one. By tomorrow morning, this place belongs to a developer." "Is that so?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "And don't think you're seeing a penny of it. The proceeds go to covering the HOA's debts and legal fees. You get nothing." "You seem very confident," I said. "I know the rules," she said, tapping her clipboard. "I wrote them." "Okay, Linda," I said. "Enjoy your open house." I went back inside. I watched her sell my house. I watched her shake hands. I watched her sign preliminary paperwork with a slick-looking guy in a suit who clearly wanted to bulldoze the farm. She thought she was the queen of the neighborhood. She thought she had crushed us. But she had made the classic mistake of a tyrant. She assumed that just because she had a little bit of power, she had all the power. She didn't check the foundation. That night, the HOA board met. I wasn't invited, of course. But I knew what was happening. They were voting to accept the sale. They were spending the money before they even had it. I waited until Sunday morning. The sale was pending. The contracts were being drawn up. Linda was probably popping champagne. That's when I made my move. I didn't call Linda. I didn't call the HOA board. I called the sheriff. And then I called the state attorney general's fraud division. I asked the sheriff's deputies to meet me at the house at 10 a.m. on Monday. I told them I had a trespassing issue. I told them someone was attempting to sell stolen property. When 2 squad cars pulled into the driveway, Linda was already there. She was with the developer, the guy in the suit, and a mobile notary. They were standing on the lawn, using the hood of Linda's car as a desk to sign the final title transfer papers. They froze when they saw the blue lights. I walked out of the house, holding a thick manila folder. My mother stood in the doorway behind me. She looked nervous, but I gave her a wink. Linda looked at the police, then at me. She put on her best concerned citizen face. She walked toward the deputies before they could even get out of the car. "Officers," she called out. "Thank goodness. I was about to call you myself. These squatters," she pointed at me, "are refusing to vacate the property. We are closing the sale right now, and they need to be removed." The deputy, a tall man named Officer Miller, looked at me. "Is this true, sir? Have you been evicted?" "No, officer," I said calmly. I walked past Linda and handed the folder to the deputy. "I'm the legal owner of this property. This woman is attempting to sell a house she doesn't own. Linda scoffed. That's a lie. The HOA seized it. It's a foreclosure. Show him the bylaws, Steve. She waved at the developer. Officer, I said, keeping my voice steady. If you look at the first document in that folder, you'll see the original deed from 1974. My grandfather bought this land 5 years before Willow Creek Estates was even planned. The officer flipped the page. Now, I continued, look at the second document. That is the master plat for the subdivision. You see that thick black line outlining the neighborhood? The officer nodded. And you see the hole in the middle? The empty white space where my farm is? I see it, the officer said. I turned to Linda. Her face had gone pale. The farm isn't in Willow Creek Estates, I said, loud enough for the developer to hear. It never was. My grandfather refused to join the HOA when the development was built. He refused to sign the covenants. This property is an enclave. It is legally distinct from the subdivision. That's not true. Linda stammered. We've been sending you fines for years. You paid some of them. My mother paid a few noise complaints because she was scared of you, I said. That doesn't create a contract. We are not members of your HOA. You have no jurisdiction here. Your bylaws don't apply to us. You can't fine us. You can't lien us. And you certainly can't foreclose on us. The developer dropped his pen. He looked at Linda with eyes that could cut glass. Is this true? He demanded. Is this property not part of the association? It has to be. Linda shrieked. It's in the middle of the neighborhood. Geography isn't law, Linda, I said. The officer looked up from the papers. He looked at Linda. His expression had changed from curiosity to suspicion. The officer said. According to these surveys, this property is outside your jurisdiction. Did you file a title search before listing this home? Linda was trembling. We, the board, voted. Did you file a title search? The officer repeated, stepping closer. She hadn't. She was so arrogant, so used to bullying people, that she assumed she could just vote my house away. This is fraud, I said. She is attempting to sell property she does not own. She is soliciting money, the deposit check right there on the hood of the car, under false pretenses. The developer snatched the check off the car hood so fast it blurred. I'm out, he said. You people are crazy. If you tried to sell me a house with a bad title, my lawyers will be contacting you. He got in his car and sped off. Linda was left standing alone with the deputies. Officer Miller said. I'm going to need you to remove that for sale sign immediately. And then I'm going to need you to come down to the station. We need to have a conversation about real estate fraud and trespassing. But the fines. Linda cried, tears streaming down her face now. They owe us thousands. We owe you nothing, I said. But you know what? You owe us. I pulled one last paper from my back pocket. While I was researching the deed, I said, I found something else. The HOA built a retention pond on the back acre of our land about 10 years ago. You crossed the property line. That's trespassing and destruction of property. I've already spoken to a lawyer. We are suing the HOA for damages, and we are demanding the immediate removal of the pond. Linda looked like she was going to be sick. And Linda, I added, since you signed the work orders for that pond personally, you're named in the lawsuit too. The deputies made her take the sign down while we watched. She had to pull it out of the mud with her own hands, ruining her blazer. She dragged it to her car, crying the whole time. The fallout was spectacular. When the neighborhood found out that the HOA was facing a massive lawsuit because of Linda's incompetence, they revolted. It turns out, you can't use HOA funds to defend a fraud case. The insurance company refused to cover them because Linda had acted outside her legal authority. The HOA had to assert a special assessment fee on every single home in the neighborhood to pay for the legal mess Linda caused. Every neighbor had to pay $2,000 out of pocket. They didn't hate me. They hated her. Linda was voted out of the presidency within a week. She sold her house 2 months later and moved to Florida. I heard she lost most of her savings settling the lawsuit we brought against her. We kept the farm. It's quiet now. I took down the fence Linda hated so much. And every time I drive past the spot where she tried to put that sign, I smile. She tried to sell my grandfather's legacy at his funeral. So I sold her out to the law.